Part 101. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1001. Countless rules began to operate, and a huge inexplicable wave appeared around Lin Yi. Everything around him was becoming illusory, and the void seemed to grow again. Lin Yi's position seemed to be peeled off from the void. He disappeared from the void in an instant, without leaving any trace. Lin Yi was also very surprised at this time. He felt that the area he was in was like being rejected by the entire void. All the rules that constituted the area he was in were instantly decomposed into the original state. The countless layers of time and space in this area could not escape fate. Just like a piece of cake that was dug out of thin air, it was completely separated from the rest of the cake. The cake that was dug out was instantly decomposed into the most basic quarks, and all the layers of the cake became the most basic units of physics. Compared with the void, it is the most basic original state. And this is not the end. The countless particles that constitute the original state are disappearing rapidly in an incomprehensible state. The surroundings became a pure void with nothing. He seemed to be exiled to an unknown mysterious place. The next moment, the radiance of the true destiny in Lin Yi's eyes reached its peak. There was nothing but emptiness in front of him, pure emptiness with nothing in it. Soon he caught a layer of membrane, and he discovered something amazing. The piece of emptiness where he was on one side of this membrane. On the other side of the membrane was the void composed of countless time and space. He knew what was going on in an instant. He seemed to be stripped of the void by a mysterious force and appeared outside the void. Outside this void was a pure void, and even the original state did not exist. The void existed in this void, but it seemed to be at a distance from the void, separated by some mysterious force. Void and void were like two parallel worlds overlapping each other, and there was no contact between the two. This strange state surprised Lin Yi, because when he was in the void, he had never discovered the level of void. This was the first time he discovered that overlapping with the void, there was actually a state of void. Looking around, the radiance of the true destiny in his eyes reached its peak. At this moment, he even consumed 1/10 of his spiritual wave sphere. The infinite distance was stretched, and infinite information flashed before his eyes. Then, he saw the true face of the void. It was a huge range that seemed to have no specific regular shape. In this range, there were countless levels, which influenced each other and formed a huge hole under the 5 huge mysterious networks. In this hole, only the most central group flashed with countless bright radiances. The rest of the parts were pitch black, and this huge form was still slowly expanding. With 5 huge networks as the skeleton, it expanded towards a more distant direction. And emptiness could not see any end at all, as if it was truly endless. Lin Yi looked at the void. At this time, he still maintained the state of true destiny, and his true destiny was being consumed every moment. He could feel that in emptiness, his body seemed unable to maintain its existence. Empty is producing a strange devouring nature, wanting to devour all the visible and invisible things that make up his body. Zhenming Wujiang instantly operated to the extreme, and with one step, he had already left this empty space. That layer of membrane composed of inexplicable power could not stop him at all. The next moment, he returned to the void and stood on the normal void level. But at this time, the place where he appeared was a void filled with terrifying storms. The degree of violence of the void storm here exceeded his imagination. He was surrounded by storms composed of fragments of time and space, energy, matter, and soul. Every second, his body seemed to have endured the powerful attacks of hundreds or thousands of Tiangxiandao level. However, Zhenming Wujiang kept him in an uninjured state forever. But if an ordinary outsider came here, he would die directly in an instant. There was no way to resist this violent force impact. He looked left and right, and followed the induction in the dark, and flew quickly in one direction. His speed was already extremely fast, and the state of Zhenming Wujiang could accelerate infinitely. Soon, his speed increased to an unimaginable level, and for a moment he even felt a sense of time reversal. His speed exceeded tens and hundreds of times the speed of light, but the increase in speed did not lead to the reversal of time. The state of true destiny is very strange. Although Lin Yi's speed has exceeded countless times the speed of light, this speed does not affect the outside world. The outside world cannot affect true destiny, and the effects produced by true destiny cannot affect the outside world either. The two are completely isolated. Soon he rushed out of the desert void and re-entered the range of the life void. When he came to the boundary between the two, his eyes condensed slightly. This place is completely occupied by endless weird existences, and tumors grow everywhere in the void. In the eyes of true destiny, Lin Yi saw a trace of weird essence entangled in the 5 major rules. These weird essences are growing by absorbing the energy, matter, time, and space, and even souls in the void through the 5 major rules. It is like parasitizing on the 5 innate rules, absorbing their power bit by bit. As the number of weirdness increases, the foundation of time and space, matter, energy, and soul that constitute the void is decreasing. And all the weird power in these countless weirdnesses is formed after the foundation of the 5 major rules is transformed. Under normal circumstances, the weirdness is completely destroyed in the particle state, and the weirdness essence will be integrated into the void cycle. And the basic material that constitutes the weird body will be restored to the 5 major essences, and then absorbed and operated by the 5 major rules. The most special thing in the void is spiritual energy, which is a peculiar energy generated by the 5 major rules during operation. Only when the living body absorbs this spiritual energy will it have the ability to contact and mobilize the 5 major rules. All systems in the void cannot leave spiritual energy, even the Blue Star martial arts system. Now Lin Yi has discovered something even more terrifying. In this area occupied by the weirdness, the spiritual energy was almost devoured. This void would no longer produce spiritual energy, because the 5 major rules of the void could not operate in this area. This made him think of the future in his mind. As the weirdness spread, the spiritual energy in the entire void would decrease rapidly. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1002. A large number of strong men will lose the power to mobilize the 5 major rules. In the end, the void will even become a place like the absolute spirit world. Countless people can only watch the weirdness continue to expand and finally go to extinction. Lin Yi suddenly felt a little worried, even if he had his own spiritual wave weapon system. If most of the void is occupied by the weirdness, the concentration of spiritual energy in the void will decrease. It will directly lead to the degradation of the strong, and the disappearance of a large number of strong men will cause the void to fall into a disadvantage in the high-end combat power against the weirdness. Then, the weirdness will break through more worlds, and eventually the spiritual wave weapon system will not be able to save the void. Lin Yi suddenly realized that he seemed to have underestimated the weirdness. The invasion of the weirdness is more serious than imagined, and the most important thing is that its range is too large. If it continues like this, no one knows what the ending will be. He took a deep breath, and countless weirdness around him had seen him. There was even a huge weirdness, whose body even reached the level of tens of millions of kilometers. Countless strange tentacles stretched out from his body and slowly fell towards Lin Yi's location. Everything was distorted wherever he passed, and the 5 major rules were torn apart. Lin Yi looked at this scene, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. He was not interested in fighting with this kind of existence. It was very troublesome to kill this huge strange ancient beast. Their power was simply endless, and they needed to use destructive weapons to truly annihilate them. The strange nature also required a huge amount of spiritual wave power. A ball of space-time power condensed behind him and turned into a portal. He turned around and inserted the key to the arbitrary door, and then stepped into it. Finally, the door of space-time shattered, and countless huge tentacles fell down. But nothing was caught, and it did not affect Lin Yi's departure. This huge strange ancient attack may be just an instinctive reaction. The huge ancient beast did not even look here. In the Wanqi room, Lin Yi's third clone returned here safely. He turned around and left the void city again, appearing in the vast void. There was still a platform under his feet, quietly looking at the depths of the void. In a dark void, the backs of history were all shocked. Number 5 said slowly, "This guy's strength is a bit beyond our imagination." All the attempts ended in failure. Whether it is the miracle coin or the dangerous area, it can't have any effect on him. The spiritual power he possesses may be stronger than we expected. I suggest temporarily postponing the plan against him. The anti-psychic weapons of the ancient gods may not have an effect on him. Number 1 nodded slowly. Don't use the thought imprint he left in the spiritual wave transmission device for the time being. That is the only thing that can cooperate with the anti-psychic weapons to launch an attack. It is also this person's biggest flaw. It must be used at the most important moment. Let's go. After the voice fell, the dark void dimmed again, and the 5 figures disappeared here. Lin Yi stood quietly in the void, waiting quietly, but there was no further action. Have you given up? The other side of history? Mysterious group of 5, what are your origins? How can you influence so many forces? He used the miracle coin and got all the information about him that happened within 5 minutes. Among them, the image of the group of 5 people on the other side of history appeared. In this process, he learned that many forces were related to these 5 people, and he also felt pressured by the strength of these forces. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but take a deep breath, but it's not polite not to return the favor. Since you are so enthusiastic to entertain me, I also need to fight back. With a thought in his mind, a thought has been connected to the Void City. In the palace of the chairman of the Void Destiny Committee, an illusory shadow appeared here. The president looked at the projection of Lin Yi. Manager Lin, it seems that you are going to fight back. Lin Yi nodded. Others have come to the door, so naturally we have to make them feel a little pain. Help me pass the message to these 73 world groups. If they don't kill the strong people involved in this matter, then I will cut off the spiritual wave projection to them. How to choose, they decide for themselves. As he said, a message has been transmitted to the heart of the president of the Void Destiny Committee. The president's expression slightly condensed. Among these 73 world groups, 84 strong people participated in this world. Each of them is the leader of a party and a person with top combat power. The Void is not like in the storybook novels, where there are strong people of absolute level, and one person can suppress countless time and space. There are countless professional systems in the Void, involving all kinds of wonderful powers, and mutual generation and mutual restraint are the most common things. The strong people of any system may be targeted and killed. There is no dictator of power, and most organizations and internal structures exist in the form of meetings. It's just that the powerful person in the system will be chosen as the leader, but it does not mean that he can dominate the life and death of others. Once Lin Yi's information spreads, other people in these forces will not allow these participants to survive for their own wealth, power, and strength, which will affect their interests. A message spread throughout the Void like a storm, hoping that no one in the world group controlled by the Alliance would be missed. Manager Lin of the Wanqiwu was attacked, and there were 6 waves of attacks, each of which was extremely dangerous. There were people from 74 world groups involved. The list of these people has appeared in the hands of all forces in the Void. All the people in these 74 world groups have received a request from Lin Yi. They are required to hand over the murderer, otherwise the transmission of the spiritual wave will be cut off, and what awaits them will be a strange invasion. The ending is either destruction or going far away. When they come back in the future, their hometown may not belong to them anymore. And they will also lose all their wealth. This threat makes all the strong men in these 74 world groups feel angry, fearful, and helpless. All the strong men in the void felt the terrifying pressure from the Wanchaiwu from the statement issued by Lin Yi. This kind of pressure was silent, but so real. The ending was just as Lin Yi expected. More than 80 heads were delivered to him. And these heads were directly built into a jingguan and placed outside the gate of the Wanchaiwu. Everyone who passed by the Wanchaiwu would see this jingguan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1003. Everyone who passed by was trembling in their hearts. Every owner of these heads was a majestic existence in the original world group. But just because of a wrong choice, it led to his own death. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Wanchaiwu quietly established his authority in the Hope Alliance, so that no one dared to challenge him easily. They also deeply realized the importance of the Lingbo weapon system, which was a weapon related to everyone's life. In the Beast God World Group, the mysterious number 4 sat quietly on the throne, with a faint smile on his face. Those 5 guys may have suffered a big loss this time. 988. There was a hint of schadenfreude in No 4's eyes. 7 waves of testing seemed to have no effect. This mysterious Mr. Lin really surprised me. Maybe we can get in touch with him and cause some trouble for those people. There was a faint smile and coldness in his eyes. Thinking of this, I already have a plan in mind. The Hope Alliance's evacuation plan is in full swing. More and more people from other world groups are migrating for a long time in the void, passing through the void wormholes of one world group after another. Even during this process, there were quite a few migrants, and a large number of world groups along the way were already occupied by weirdness. Then they have to go through a bloody battle, fight their way through countless strange things, rush into the void wormhole and descend to the next world group. The Hope Alliance has also sent rescue teams one after another to rescue and help these migrants. The void has completely fallen into an era of chaos and darkness, with only 30% of the area under the absolute control of the Alliance of Hope. There is the last place of hope, and at this time something is brewing and happening. That is, many people have discovered that the spiritual energy in the void is decreasing at an alarming rate. From the first stage of the strange invasion to the present, the concentration of spiritual energy in the void seems to have dropped by 1%. It doesn't seem like much, but it's only a few void months. If it goes on for many years, what will be the result? Everyone felt hugely threatened, especially those in high positions. They know there is no time left for them to develop steadily. They must take the initiative to attack and ensure that at least 50% of the void is under their control. Some strong people have already calculated that 50% is a necessary number in order to maintain the spiritual energy in the void to a certain concentration without a significant drop. And this requires a large number of spiritual wave transmission devices to be able to do it. In the House of Everything, the Lord of Souls arrives again. The current situation is not good. The spiritual energy in the void is rapidly decreasing. If the current situation continues, in at most 10 void years, the spiritual energy of the entire world will drop by half. The number of all high-level powerful men in the void will be reduced by 90%. Their upper limit of power will be greatly affected by the gap in spiritual energy. And this will lead to a further contraction of our front. In the end, the lack of strong people led to irreparable destruction. So now, on behalf of the entire Pakatan Harapan coalition, I have made a proposal. What advice? We have carefully studied the spiritual wave transmission device. Actually, there is only one most important thing in it, and that is the imprint of your mind. What the Hope Alliance means is that they will manufacture the spiritual wave transmission device. You only need to be responsible for imprinting your thoughts. And all the resources you have requested will be uniformly allocated to you by the Alliance of Hope. This will be a huge time saver. The most important thing for us right now is time. Before the spiritual energy of the void declines irreversibly, recapture the part of the void that has been invaded by the weird. Lin Yi frowned and thought for a while. It turns out that these people from the Hope Alliance have discovered the decrease in spiritual energy concentration. Originally, I wanted to check the number of Lingbo energy devices. But now it seems that things really can't continue like this. Otherwise it would be bad if it affects Wanchaiwu in the end. Thinking of this, Lin Yi said slowly, in addition to the supplies that were first agreed upon, I also want to put forward a condition. The Soul Master looked at him calmly. What are the conditions? I ask all the forces in the void to swear by their strength and true spirit that they will never take the initiative to target me. Once someone intends to attack me and Wanchaiwu, all the forces in the void will encircle and suppress them. The Soul Master listened to Lin Yi's request with a hint of surprise in his eyes. If this clause is agreed to, it means that both Lin Yi and Wanchaiwu will be the safest people in the world. No one dares to attack him, otherwise they will face the encirclement and suppression of the entire void force. At this time, a miracle coin appeared in Lin Yi's hand. This one is a miracle coin, the Eternal Oath. You should know how powerful it is. Any treaty reached using an eternal oath can never be broken. Otherwise those who break their oath will be killed by their own power. So you got this miracle coin. The Soul Master was also shocked when he saw this miracle coin. This was also a very famous miracle coin many years ago. It uses the power of the entire void as the basis of the contract. Once the contract is signed, the power of the signer will be recorded in the void. Once the signer violates the cause, this little power will be operated by the void. The power belonging to the signer will expand infinitely under the blessing of the huge void. Then this force will backfire and attack the signer. No one can defend against the attack of their own power. This power contains all the information of the signer. From the soul, the true spirit, and even the power system mastered, as long as the signer dies, the backlash from the void will never end. So, this is the most dangerous power. Those who are willing to sign the eternal oath mean that they will never violate the content of the contract. At this time, Lin Yi gently threw the miracle coin out. Those who agree to the conditions, as long as they silently recite it in their hearts, the contract will naturally be established. The Soul Master nodded. I understand. Next I will convey your request to everyone. A storm spread across the void at an astonishing speed. All the void forces received this news, and countless people were shocked. Lin Yi's request was bold. This was a life and death situation, which made some people in power feel aggrieved. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1004. Among them, the powerful people and organizations who left their homes and hometowns basically agreed immediately after receiving the information from the Hope Alliance. Almost no one refused. 1/10 of the world's output, not targeting Lin Yi and Wanchaiwu, and encircling and suppressing anyone who dared to attack Wanqi and Lin Yi, these two conditions were nothing to them. Now they just want to take back the world, and everything will be discussed later. The powerful people in other worlds can only accept it. However, this eternal oath can only constrain this group of people. When new powerful people appear in the future and the strange disasters are quelled, these people may not sign the eternal oath. However, Lin Yi does not expect all the powerful people to sign it. He only needs the recognition of the current powerful people. When someone wants to attack him and can attack him, he should have completed the deduction of the infinite true destiny. Lin Yi looked out of the French window calmly, not knowing what he was thinking. At this time, a man wearing a golden robe and a golden appearance appeared outside the French window. Standing outside, he saw Lin Yi. He pushed the door open and walked straight to Lin Yi. Hello, Mr. Lin Yi, the manager of the Eurozwia. Let me introduce myself. You can call me No 4. Number 4? Are you the back of history? Lin Yi looked at the person in front of him with some surprise. Through the miracle coin, he collected information about the members of the back of history. They all called each other by numerical titles. Number 4 in front of him seemed to be one of the members, but he did not appear in the 5 people at that time. Number 4 had a faint smile on his face. I have parted ways with them. They attacked you, and I didn't show up, right? Lin Yi looked at him with a trace of thought in his eyes. You came to see me for something, right? Go ahead. I have some information about the 5 of them. Are you interested in buying it? Is that okay? You were all companions before, so why are you selling their information so easily? Number 4 smiled coldly. It's just driven by interests. People like us have never had any companions, only the same interests. That's true. What do you want? I want to buy information. Use the information I know in exchange for the information you know. Lin Yi looked at number 4 in front of him, with a hint of interest in his eyes. Information? So what information do you want to know? Number 4 looked at Lin Yi mysteriously. I want to know what you saw in the dark side gate. Hearing No 4's question, Lin Yi's eyes showed a hint of surprise. How do you know I've entered the dark side gate? Of course I have my channels, number 4 said calmly. Lin Yi looked at him, his mind working at high speed. It seems that there is a traitor in the Void City, but this person only knows that I went to the dark side gate and doesn't know what I saw. Then the level of the person who leaked the information should not be high. I guess he heard something from the President or the Lord of the Asgard or the Soul Master. That's why he knew the existence of the dark side gate. However, there is another possibility. This person may have been there, entered the twisted area, and saw the existence of the dark side gate. And he knew where I went through some method, so he wanted to get the news from me. Lin Yi's mind was running fast, analyzing all the possibilities. The information behind the dark side gate is very precious. The information on the back of history is also valuable, but it is much worse than the information behind the dark side gate. Number 4 looked at Lin Yi with a trace of thought in his eyes. Then I will give you another piece of information. You should know about Jin Yu, right? A trace of surprise flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. After a moment of silence, he slowly said. Did he get into trouble? Yes, something big happened. He is an old antique who existed before the birth of the void. Even in the era of the ancient gods, he was a true overlord. Lin Yi was silent for a while. What happened to him? Number 4 smiled faintly. I can't tell you that. The exchange of information is equal. Lin Yi looked at number 4, tapped the armrest lightly with his fingers, and said slowly for a long time, okay. Then sign the contract. As he said that, a strange note appeared in his hand. Strange power. Mr. Lin, you are really dangerous. You can even use this kind of power. Lin Yi sneered, people like you, ordinary power has no constraints on you. Only strange power has a certain deterrent effect on you. If you are willing to sign a contract, we will trade information. If you don't want to, then we will go our separate ways. Number 4 looked at the strange note in front of him, smiled and said, no problem. As soon as he finished speaking, he had written his name and signed a 4. The note ignited without wind, and a strange force enveloped him and Lin Yi. It was some kind of extremely terrifying and strange nature. A ray of information flowed out from the hearts of the two people, and each flowed into the other's mind. Lin Yi checked the information sent by the other party. Needless to say, the back of history was just their usual bases, which forces they controlled, etc. What really caught his attention was the information from Jin Yu, this mysterious ancient life that existed before the void. He disappeared, silently disappeared from this world without leaving any trace. This is simply incredible, as if he was wiped out from the world by something. Lin Yi saw this information and thought about it. Could it be that his mind was found and swallowed by that mysterious existence? Finally led to his disappearance in the void? Disappearance without leaving any trace. In the information of number 4, the so-called disappearance means that there is no body or other traces left. Only his belongings, which constitute Jin Yu's body, disappeared completely. This made Lin Yi feel a great danger, because it confirmed his guess. The world of the mind may really be like a dark jungle, following the oldest jungle law order. Whoever is exposed will die. What kind of world is the spiritual level? When Lin Yi was exiled from the void by the back of history and descended into emptiness, he could see the void parallel to emptiness through his true destiny, but he did not see any trace of the spiritual level. It is obvious that the spiritual level is not formed by the void, but a more dangerous and terrifying place. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1005. All this shows that the form of existence at the spiritual level transcends emptiness and void and seems to be a more advanced form of existence. Various speculations about the spiritual level flashed through his mind, and Lin Yi took a deep breath. The spiritual level seemed more dangerous and terrifying than he imagined. Jin Yu was the first loser he knew who was observed by a mysterious existence. If the soul is swallowed, it will cause the body on the void level to disappear. Then if you check the information and historical records of the entire void, you may be able to discover more of this phenomenon. At this time, No 4's eyes flashed with shock, and the information behind the dark side gate made him feel an incomparable chill. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. He also thought of a lot. His dark eyes fell on Lin Yi's face, and he seemed to know what Lin Yi was thinking. I existed for many years. As you might guess, there are many civilized people throughout history who disappeared out of thin air. This kind of disappearance is called the uncertain disappearance technique, a type of uncertain disaster. Actually, the void is also a very dangerous place. Because it is so big, we don't know how many lives are disappearing in various accidents every moment. These are all kinds of uncertain disasters. No one is going to count how many lives have been lost as a result of a certain type of uncertain disaster. And I'm different. I have been observing the entire void since the earliest times. So I know a lot of information. I have divided these uncertain disasters into thousands of types, and I know the phenomenon of each disaster well. After observing the disappearance of the ancient being Jin Yu, I've just combined that with the disappearance of uncertainty. The information I get from you can basically complete the truth behind this uncertain disappearance. At the spiritual level, if the life of the soul is swallowed up, their bodies will disappear from the entire void, leaving no trace. From the distant coordinates to the current coordinates, as far as I know, there are trillions of life forms that have disappeared due to uncertainty. After hearing No 4's conclusion, Lin Yi took a deep breath. I'm curious, behind the scenes of history, what is the purpose of your existence? They have mastered the true power of the spiritual level. Logically speaking, they should already have the ability to enter the spiritual level. Why are you still obsessed with the void? One of them once said that he wanted to rule the entire void. Now that they have been able to enter the spiritual level and pursue a higher path, does the void still have meaning to them? Number 4 smiled when he heard this. Why do you think they haven't explored the spiritual level? After hearing No 4's words, a thought suddenly flashed through Lin Yi's mind. It turns out that they are already exploring the spiritual level, but they haven't really discovered anything yet. The reason why I am obsessed with the void is because the ancient gods should have hidden many secrets here. If these secrets can be clarified, then spiritual exploration may be easier. It's not even impossible to find traces of the ancient gods. The most efficient way is to unify the entire void and gather all forces to investigate the ruins and hidden secrets of the ancient gods. Lin Yi didn't believe it all when he heard this. There must be other secrets in it. Simply investigating the legacy of the ancient gods, they had done this countless times over countless years. It was obvious that the other party didn't want to tell him what the real secret was. But he already knows that there are various forces behind history, and the next step is revenge against these guys. The fatwa issued some time ago was just the beginning. Now that I have received the information from number 4, it is the beginning of the real revenge. Number 4 seemed to see through what Lin Yi wanted to do, with a faint smile in his eyes. Then, this time the transaction ends here. Okay, I hope there are still opportunities for cooperation. The figure of number 4 disappeared in the next moment, as if it had never appeared. After countless messages flashed through Lin Yi's heart, a cold light appeared. The next step is to operate it through the Void Destiny Committee. I think they would be very interested in knowing this information. With a flash of figure, Lin Yi appeared at the core palace of the Void Destiny Committee. The president looked at Lin Yi, who suddenly arrived, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Mr. Lin, why do you have time to come to my place? Lin Yi looked at the president with a smile in his eyes. I have some news here, you must be very interested. As he spoke, with a thought, a stream of information flowed into the other party's heart. After receiving this information, the president's eyes showed a hint of surprise. This is good news. We have always wanted to find their hidden strength. Unexpectedly, Mr. Lin actually gave me a big gift. These guys are really powerful. They have actually controlled such a huge force. If one day something suddenly breaks out, we will be in catastrophe. But now that we have their information, it will be much easier to deal with it next. However, the current priority is to regain most of the control of the void. We can only take action against them when the time comes. We don't have time to delay. Choose the lesser of two evils. Although he knows the information behind history, the president does not intend to act rashly. The number of world powerhouses involved in this matter is simply incalculable. It is definitely not possible to completely defeat all the forces behind history in a short period of time. Mr. Lin, we will carefully consider your information and make careful arrangements. We will not let you down. The president naturally knew what Lin Yi meant. This was to kill someone with a borrowed knife. Lin Yi nodded, then trouble the president to operate it. You can say that this is my intention. I believe that the participants will be more attentive and give me face. As soon as the voice fell, Lin Yi had disappeared here. Looking at the direction where Lin Yi disappeared, the president's face was calm, and countless information flashed in his eyes. Shaking his head slightly, he slowly closed his eyes. The aura of eternity on his body has become more and more dignified, and the imprints of the 5 major rules in his fundamental spirituality have completely merged into one. An inexplicable thing is being born in his fundamental spirituality, and that is something called eternity. Although he is getting closer and closer to eternity, the president has a vague feeling of uneasiness in his heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1006. The arrow is on the string and must be shot. The road to eternity is only a few days away. I'm afraid it won't be so easy to survive the backlash of the void. But since the miracle coin has shown an anomaly, it almost proves that my entry into eternity should be part of the great history of the entire void. Then no matter how big the danger is, there should be a chance to resolve it. Although I am 70% sure, I still have to be more cautious. Thinking of this, a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. Next, it's the last few days of waiting. Time passed in a blink of an eye. The war in the void is in full swing, and the army that conquers the weirdness continues to win. A large number of spiritual wave transmission devices began to be manufactured by the strong men of one world group after another. Lin Yi is only responsible for manufacturing carriers for holding the thought imprints, and then these carriers are transported to the hands of various forces in the void through the hands of the Void Destiny Committee. It's just that between the existence and non-existence, a considerable number of forces have not received the thought imprints after waiting for a long time. Because they have no spiritual wave weapons, they are completely in a passive defense and shrinking situation under the strange invasion. And the strong men of other world groups have launched a large-scale counterattack and recaptured one world group after another. But all this happened silently. No matter how angry these forces that have not obtained the mark are, it will be useless. There are too many forces that need to obtain the spiritual wave weapon system, and many times they can only rely on luck. Invisibly, the forces on the back of history are slowly weakened unconsciously, killing people with borrowed knives. At the same time, some void forces that were judged as extremely evil by the Void Destiny Committee were also weakened. There are endless forces in the void, some of which are evil, some are just, and some are neutral. Among them, the extremely evil ones are happy to destroy life and the world, and are rejected by most normal forces. And this kind of civilization is usually highly aggressive and grows by plundering. However, the weird existence made them suffer a head-on blow, and finally had to bow to the Hope Alliance. Many times, this kind of force is used as a vanguard by the Hope Alliance to collide with the strange tide. Although they also have spiritual wave weapons, it is impossible to have no casualties in such a collision. This is also the intention of the Hope Alliance. In between, relying on Lin Yi's spiritual wave weapon system, the positive and neutral forces in the void gradually gain the upper hand. Faced with this situation, those evil and terrifying forces have no way to deal with it. Some time ago, there were incidents targeting Lin Yi, and almost most of them came from these evil forces. The purpose is to seize the manufacturing secrets of the spiritual wave weapon system, so as to avoid being targeted by other forces in the void. As a result, everyone saw that there was no effect at all, and the forces and people who took action paid a huge price. In the end, all those who took action were also solved. Now the bosses of these evil forces have also recognized the situation. They almost let the weak beings under their command charge forward. The real strong will never take action easily. This is the characteristic of evil forces. The strong take everything and control everything. If you want to die, you die. If you want to live, you live. The subordinates have no right to choose. Although the evil forces have been weakened a lot, their real foundation has not been shaken at all. However, with their cover, the back of history did not realize that the forces they controlled had been gradually suppressed. However, this kind of suppression is destined to take a certain amount of time to show its effect, but the trend has been formed and will not change. It is just a matter of time. Lin Yi sat in the Wanchaiwu, looking at a jade card in his hand, which contained a plan for cleaning up the back forces of history sent by the Soul Master. Each of these ancient beings is very smart. As long as they catch the flaw, they will pursue them relentlessly. I hope you can learn a lesson this time. But these are just details. The real danger comes from the 5 members of the back of history. Maybe I can use the mysterious altar in the dark side gate. At this time, a thought flashed through his mind. Being stared at by 5 lingering strong men is not an interesting thing. Just as he was thinking about the feasibility of this plan, endless dark clouds suddenly appeared over the entire void city. This is the void, how could there be dark clouds? Everyone's eyes were drawn, and they looked up. There was a dark cloud made up of endless and violent power, a storm of time and space. It seemed that the 5 innate rules were all chaotically existing in that huge dark cloud. An extremely terrifying aura instantly enveloped the entire void city. At this time, a figure shrouded in eternal glory appeared out of thin air under the dark cloud. On the streets of the void city, countless people were screaming. "It's the president, it's the president. What's going on? What exactly is that thing that appeared in the sky? It's so scary. One look after another looked at the sky with horror. Everyone in the Void City saw this scene. Some beings who had long been hidden in the darkness cast their eyes here. Has it started? Maybe it's time to witness a miracle. Want to achieve eternity. What a dream. Eternity, finally someone is charging at it. Countless people looked at the sky, the dark clouds evolved from the chaotic power of the void. A figure exuded an eternal hazy light, letting the storm of the dark clouds blow on him. He seemed like an eternal pillar of heaven, unmoved. In this huge dark cloud, there are countless forces flowing and conflicting, each of which can kill a strong man at the level of the heavenly immortal Deo. A huge space-time storm slowly blew out of the dark cloud. It hit the president, but the president was like space and time itself at this time. The storm blew on him, but it swept past him as if it had not met him. The space-time storm was also mixed with fragments of souls, matter, and energy. These things collided with him, and passed through him as if they had encountered air. At this time, he seemed to have turned into the void itself, able to withstand the impact of any force. The storm was roaring violently, becoming more and more violent. The people in the Void City all looked nervous when they saw this scene. If they were to have this level of power, they would probably be killed in an instant. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1007. The backlash of the void was extremely violent, but it did not cause any harm to the president in front of him. Someone exclaimed, "The president has really achieved complete immunity to the 5 innate ways. The backlash of the void has no effect on him. We are going to witness the arrival of a miracle." The miracle coin vision at the beginning is really telling us. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The president is an eternal existence destined by heaven, incredible. Cheers continued to ring, and many people had already begun to run to the notice, falling into a happy carnival. And the backlash of the void in the sky continued. As if feeling that the president could not be eliminated, the void began to undergo strange changes. In the huge storm, the 5 innate rules began to emerge directly, forming a huge rotation. An unimaginably huge 5-colored millstone appeared in the center of the storm. The president was in the middle of this huge millstone. The millstone was black, filled with an unimaginable terrifying destructive force. It seemed that all the destructive forces of the void were gathered in this millstone. That was the pure destructive side of the 5 innate rules. The moment the big millstone appeared, the surrounding void was directly broken. The big millstone and the president seemed to be separated from the entire void, belonging to a level that could not be reached or touched. When Lin Yi saw this scene, he immediately understood everything. Both parties were already in the empty level. The big millstone directly tore through countless layers of time and space and pulled the president into the empty. The empty level was very terrifying. There was nothing there. If an ordinary life entered there, it would collapse directly in an instant. All the rules that maintained their existence would be directly transformed into the most basic particles. In the end, these particles would also disappear in the empty. In Lin Yi's calculation, only when the Tiangxiandao cultivators completed the 5 tribulations and formed their own rules in their bodies could they survive in the empty world. At this time, the huge millstone in the void pulled the president into the level of emptiness, which was obviously an attack of a higher level. The huge millstone began to rotate frantically, and it was visible to the naked eye that the nearly eternal light emanating from the president was being ground down like ice breaking. Once the light was broken, it would disappear directly into the emptiness, as if it had never existed. In just a few seconds, the eternal light emanating from the president's body seemed to be reduced to only a thin layer. The president, who had been sitting cross-legged in the void, slowly opened his eyes. The next moment, his body shattered and turned into a pure eternal light. This eternal light suddenly shrank and turned into a mysterious singularity. This singularity also exuded a faint eternal fluctuation, which seemed to contain all the information of the president. As the venue turned into a singularity, the huge millstone also shrank suddenly and crushed towards it. But the next moment, the singularity that seemed to be eternal exploded, as if the world was born at the beginning of the Big Bang of the universe. Endless fluctuations of matter, energy, time, space, and soul washed out from it. The huge millstone froze for a moment, under the impact of this incomparable torrent. Crack! The strange sound of breaking appeared in the ears of all living beings. Countless cracks quickly covered every corner of the huge millstone. The next moment, the millstone exploded, and endless fluctuations spread to the surroundings. An eternal light rose slowly from the center of the explosion. A wonderful figure appeared there. He seemed to represent eternity, and infinite spiritual brilliance bloomed from him. All the time, space, energy, soul, and material fluctuations emitted by the explosion were melted into the emptiness. The only thing left was the figure in the center filled with spiritual energy brilliance. The brilliance slowly converged into the body of this figure, and then revealed his true body. A man in a Taoist robe, with pure black hair tied behind his head, his pupils were pitch black, like a sea of stars. The face is about 20, with a full forehead, sword-like eyebrows, and star-like eyes, pure white skin, and the whole person is filled with a kind of spiritual energy. At this time, he seemed to be the source of spiritual energy. An eternal halo appeared at the back of his head, making countless people who saw him realize at first glance that this was an eternal existence. He took a step forward and lightly stepped out. The next moment he had left the emptiness and returned to the level of the void. At this time, countless beings hidden in the darkness watched the scene quietly, and they were all surprised. Is this eternity? Immune to the 5 innate rules, it can actually give birth to spiritual energy. Not bound or hurt by the 5 rules, it can still produce spiritual energy in an endless stream. This is true freedom, without any constraints. Incredible, is this the path to eternity? One after another, thoughts echoed in the void, and countless people saw the true direction of eternity from the president. Whether it was the soul master or the master of the fairy palace, their hearts were shocked and they saw the way forward clearly. At this time, something extremely mysterious happened. In the darkness, 5 extremely terrifying rays of light suddenly fell from the darkness. These rays of light fell straight into the center of the void, which was the void forbidden land. As the light appeared, everyone felt a breath, that was the breath of eternity. At the same time, the entire void seemed to be cheering, as if cheering for the return of their master. All the forces were worshipping them, and a terrifying thought swept the entire void. The ancient God Palace will reopen in 3 days, and the leaders of various forces will come to the audience. Those who fail to come in time will be punished by the void. The great and infinite will instantly appear in the minds of all living beings. At the same time, they also knew where the ancient God Palace was in the dark. It was located in a place called the Void Forbidden Land, where even the weird could not invade. Once they approached, they would be wiped out instantly, and they could not reproduce there at all, at least they could not do it at present. The 5 golden lights were so strong that they could not imagine. Everyone could feel an irresistible terrifying force, which was a deterrent from the spiritual level. And Lin Yi instantly realized the truth of the 5 golden lights. The power of the mind? And it is far stronger than the 3rd level of ordinary mind power. It is completely on the same level as the power in the altar hidden in the dark side gate. Has the ancient God returned? Incredible, the ancient God actually went deep into the spiritual level. Instantly, the void exploded, and countless people had an incredible thought. Ancient God. Has the ancient God who created the void reappeared? The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1008. In the shadow of the void, 5 figures from the back of history appeared here. No one's will was shaken and unbelievable. How is it possible? How could the ancient gods and the others come back? Why did they come back? Number 1 said incoherently. All the other members also had incredible expressions on their faces. "This is trouble," number 2 said gloomily. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. "The ancient gods have returned, so the next step must be to reunify the entire void and find their original glory. I'm afraid it's only a matter of time before we are discovered." "What now?" "What are you afraid of?" number 6 suddenly said. "After so many years, we have already entered eternity and even controlled the power of the soul. Although the 5 forces that fell just now are powerful, they are not unsolvable. Maybe we are not opponents, but they can't stop us if we leave. The power of the ancient gods can have an absolute advantage in the void of life. But the desert void beyond their control is our safe zone. I don't know how many terrifying old antiques are hidden in there. No one will see the return of the old gods in vain. And it's not their time anymore. The president of the Void Destiny Committee has truly entered eternity, and he is not someone who can be manipulated at will. After all, eternity is indestructible. In the worst case, we will take the lead and connect all the old antiques to fight against the ancient gods." Number 6's words were like thunder exploding in the hearts of other members. Number 1 said slowly, "Number 6 is right, it is no longer their time. It's not like we haven't grown since we broke away from them. And number 4 should have occupied the sealed ancient god by now. These ancient gods must have noticed his existence. He will be the first unlucky guy then. We can observe in secret, how much power does the ancient god have now? Then, plan the next step. And now that there is a strange invasion, the void is facing destruction. Only the Lingbo weapon system can save everything. These ancient gods have returned. If they cannot turn the tide, they will not be convinced by the Alliance of Hope. They will face many difficulties. It's still unclear who will win, let's just watch." In the desert void, some terrifying existences look towards the void of life. Among them are the mysterious black robes and shadows that appear in the dark side gate. At this time, the 2 of them gathered together and stood in a desert void. Jinyu disappeared some time ago. I'm afraid his soul was visited by the owner of the stone tablet. The black-robed man said with cold and heavy thoughts. My mind has begun to move. I'm afraid it will be difficult for the mysterious existence to find me. Jinyu is careless, Shadow said slowly. What do you think about the return of the ancient gods? In the beginning, there were 6 of them. One of them was infected by the strangeness and was sealed by the 5 of them. Then they disappeared. I originally thought they escaped and went to an unknown place. Now it seems that they have gone to the spiritual level. I'm afraid something big will happen when I return this time. But the void has developed over the years and is no longer the void they knew in the past. Even if they control the authority of the void, they can only control the scope of the void of life. As long as we can't affect this place, we are safe. These guys are very insidious. They were the ones who killed the 9-clawed ancestral dragon. We'd better contact some old guys, form an alliance, and prepare to deal with the ancient gods. But the situation in the void is not good now. Let's see what they want to do first. There will be a good show this time. At this time, in addition to the 2 of them, there were pairs of eyes in the desert void, looking in the direction of the void of life. The return of the ancient god has attracted the attention of countless people. Among these people, there is no shortage of extremely ancient and terrifying existences. Each of them has an experience so ancient that it transcends all living understanding. They are the real strong ones hidden behind in the void. Even though the void is now facing destruction, the strange invasion has not allowed them to truly surface. Because they did not exist in the void countless years ago. Even if the void is destroyed, for them everything will just return to the distant coordinates. In the forbidden area at the final center of the void, this place is shrouded in a gray mist. Any tangible or intangible thing that enters here will receive an extremely huge suction force, converge towards the center, and fall into a spiritual sleep. What appears there is a point that cannot be described in words, and everything close to it will be elongated and broken down into the most basic particles. At this time, in the center of this point, there is a peaceful space, and there is a golden palace in the center of the space. 5 figures were sitting on the 5 thrones in the center of the palace. They were shrouded in golden light, like eternity. And in the center of these 5 figures, there is a looming and mysterious wave flickering. It seemed to be some kind of higher level force, and the mere fluctuation seemed to make this space unstable. One of the voices sounded slowly, "Ah, the void seems to be a little different." The ancient god known as Ah slowly said, "After all, we have been gone for a long time. The weird invasion has entered the first stage. But everything is within our predictions. After all, with the power of the miracle coin, someone stepped into eternity with the 5 rules and lit up the coordinates for us. Just like our original design, when the void faces a crisis, it will illuminate our way back." Hun, something called the Lingvo weapon system seems to have appeared in the void. I have looked at the coordinates of time and found the developer of this system. But it's strange that this man's past is shrouded in obscurity. My eyes cannot penetrate his true nature. It is a spiritual power that seems to be more profound than what we can grasp. It's incredible that there is a higher level of the soul. We have been fighting at the spiritual level for a long time, and finally we have reached the 3rd level. The power of the 4th level only exists in legends. Does it really exist? Really, what do you think? Known as the true ancient god, his eyes shrouded in golden light shone with a hint of coldness. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1009. The latest chapter of the Wanchai I Created is updated the fastest. Whether it is true or false, first catch this man, find out his power and secrets, and naturally everything will belong to us. Everything in the void belongs to us, no matter where he comes from, it should belong to us. Gu Shenzhen's words quickly won the approval of others. Zhen is right, first catch him and dig out his secrets before talking about other things, Ah said slowly. The guys on the spiritual level will probably descend into the void soon. The time of the strange invasion we calculated has arrived, and the pressure we have to bear next is not small. We must first master this power that can destroy the strange essence and see what secrets it has. Although we can also destroy the strange essence, it is not as easy as this power. It will greatly increase our chances of winning. One of the 5 ancient gods suddenly said, "Seeing seal has been opened and he is missing." The 5 ancient gods were silent for a moment. "Kong, if you are worried about him, you can go find him. Leave the things here to us." The ancient god called Kong nodded, "Okay, everything else is up to you." As soon as the voice fell, the ancient god called Kong disappeared instantly, as if he had never appeared. Hun, Zhen, looked at the last ancient god. Ancient god Zhen said slowly, "Fan, the shadow matter is in your hands. They know too many of our secrets. They must have hidden themselves when they saw us coming back. A great chaos is imminent. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the country. We cannot allow these dangerous elements to continue to exist. They are in your hands." Ancient god Fan nodded, "Don't worry, I will deal with them." Zhen said at this time, "Kong is responsible for finding Seeing, and Fan is responsible for solving the shadow problem. Hun and I are responsible for negotiating with those ancient beings. Try to get them to join us. Don't be killed or lured by those guys. As for Ah, the mysterious Lingvo developer, unification with the void is in your hands. Everyone has their own responsibilities. We don't have much time." Several ancient gods nodded slowly, and Zhen, Fan, and Hun disappeared one by one. In the end, only Ah was left in the palace. 3 days later, he would meet with the leaders of various forces in the void. He would also solve the Lingbo developers' matter on the same day. At this time, the entire void was plunged into a dark tide. The appearance of the ancient god shocked everyone. In the entire void, the leaders of all powerful forces received a special token. This token was born directly from the void and appeared directly in front of them. When they got the token, they knew what information was contained in the token. This is the certificate and road to enter the ancient temple in 3 days. It is impossible to enter the ancient temple without this thing. All forces began to discuss, and countless people were thinking about how to deal with the mysterious ancient gods. These ancient beings created the void. Some people don't care, after all, the ancient gods are too ancient. Even if they created the void, it doesn't mean that they are so powerful that no one can defeat them. After all, they seem to flee in the face of the strange invasion, which is very telling. They are not powerful and invincible. Many people are holding the idea of temporary observation, wanting to see what the ancient gods want to do in 3 days. The chairman of the Void Fate Committee sat quietly on the throne in the center of the palace. He didn't have any breath on his body, and he looked like an ordinary person. It seemed to be integrated with the entire void, a state of incomparable peace and harmony between man and nature. His eyes looked down, where the Soul Master and the Lord of the Asgard were. "You two, what do you think of the arrival of the ancient god?" The Lord of the Asgard said slowly, "I'm afraid there will be big trouble this time." The ancient god summoned everyone, probably to unify the void, just like countless years ago. The token that appeared from the void has already shown everyone their control over the void. After all, this place was created by them, and it's hard to say whether they can mobilize the power of the entire void. If my guess is right, I'm afraid there will be bloodshed by then. The 3 people present were all people who ruled a certain force. They had experienced countless times and seen countless stories. They actually had some expectations in their hearts about what the ancient god wanted to do. In fact, it's not just them. I'm afraid that in the entire void world, the controllers of each force knew what they wanted to do. But no one acted rashly, and they were all watching and waiting. Because the power of the ancient god is always a mystery, where did they go? And why did they come back? These are all mysteries. These mysteries may bring huge changes and uncertainties, so they are all observing. 3 days later, let's go and see how strong the ancient god is. The president's eyes showed a trace of solemnity. He is not afraid of fighting with the ancient god. Even if the other party uses the power of the entire void to attack him, it will be meaningless. At this time, he has already stepped into the 5 eternal rules, and this kind of power has no effect on him. Moreover, spiritual energy is continuously generated under the fusion of the 5 rules in his body. Even if he leaves the void, he can survive intact anywhere. At this time, his body is equivalent to a small void, which can be self-sufficient. In the Wanji house, Lin Yi looked at the mysterious jade card that appeared in front of him, and showed a trace of solemnity. Am I also considered a force in the void? These ancient gods seem to have known everything about the void the moment they came back. Countless forces have received this thing. I don't know how many forces there are in the trillion-level world group. If everyone has received an invitation, then the number is also at the trillion level. This information screening ability is incredible, at least I can't do it. The existence of the Tianxiandao level has given birth to the spirituality of thoughts, which can be distracted by thousands or tens of thousands at the same time, but this trillion level cannot be done. Only in mythological stories, the magical powers of trillions can be achieved. But myths are just myths, and they are different from the real void. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. Then they must have known about the Lingbo weapons system. The power of Lingbo has attracted the covetousness of countless people, and these ancient gods are probably no exception. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1010. The latest chapter of the Wanchai I created is updated the fastest. The audience 3 days later may target me. Lin Yi never pinned his hopes on others. After a little thought, he knew that his situation was not optimistic. It's really troublesome. If the situation is really wrong, maybe I have to move the Wanchai away from the Void City. There is only one place to go. Lin Yi's eyes showed a trace of helplessness. The appearance of the ancient god broke all his plans. And he had a hunch that this might just be the beginning of real chaos. In the Wanchai, all the bounty hunters stayed here, doing their own things, but their faces were very solemn. They also knew that the Wanchai might be in a very dangerous state in the future. Lin Yi looked at them and smiled faintly. Don't worry, even if the ancient god returns, it won't be so easy to harm me. It's not that we don't have a place to go. I have already made arrangements, you just need to do your job well. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone showed a trace of calmness on their faces. Sakuramiya Shirley and her group have watched Lin Yi grow up all the way. No one knows better than them how magical the power Lin Yi possesses is. Since Lin Yi said so, it means that he is absolutely sure, and all they need to do is follow the boss's footsteps closely. 3 void days passed in a blink of an eye. In the entire void, the jade cards received by the leaders of various forces bloomed with brilliance. A piece of information entered their hearts, and they immediately knew how to use this jade card. It is the same as the God Realm card, which can allow a trace of will to reach the ancient temple. One after another, invisible wills, along the power of this jade card, passed through the mysterious channel and arrived at a huge palace. This palace is vast and boundless, and you can't see the end at a glance. Countless figures appeared here. At this time, everyone's eyes were attracted to the end of this huge palace. There was a huge figure emitting golden light. His body was as big as a star, sitting on a huge throne. The wills that came to the palace changed into their original bodies, and they looked at the huge figure in surprise. A pair of golden eyes looked down at them calmly. These eyes contained no emotion, only pure indifference, looking down on everything from a high position. The people who came here looked around and compared, and found that they seemed to be just a tiny speck of dust compared to this golden giant. They could be sure that this was the real proportion, not some kind of illusion, and the ancient god in front of them was really as big as a star. The wills looked around in the palace, and they were surprised to find that the entire space was covered by countless figures. The fluctuations emitted by each figure were at least 100 times the level of the heavenly immortal Deo, and the strongest even had 1,000,000 times the level of the heavenly immortal Deo. The most eye-catching one was an existence that exuded an eternal breath. Everyone noticed him, because he had an eternal brilliance that was extremely similar to that of the ancient god. The chairman of the Void Fate Committee, he really succeeded. The first person in the entire void to step into the eternal existence. All eyes fell on him, and the chairman looked calm, looking at the huge ancient god. This ancient god is the same as what he saw in the ancient god ruins, and is even more powerful than that ancient god. He felt the deep spiritual power, flickering in the body of this ancient god, shining on everyone like the sun. All the wills bathed in this spiritual power seemed to be affected. But this effect is very subtle, even imperceptible, because this effect will not cause any phenomenon to them. But the president immediately noticed the background of this effect. Mind lock. The news that Lin Yi had brought back flashed in his mind, the spiritual level existence of hunting the soul of life. The ancient god in front of him obviously returned from which level, and they seemed to have mastered this method. The president did not hesitate at all. His body, the eternal nature, had long been integrated into his mind, turning into a sort of eternal color. From the day Lin Yi brought back the information, he has been studying the power of the mind. At the moment he stepped into eternity, he had combined his eternal nature with his spiritual power and successfully entered the spiritual level. However, he had a premonition at that time. Once his will completely entered the spiritual level, he would never appear in the void again. The spiritual level is not a place where you can enter and exit at will, it is a place of higher existence. Currently, he has entered and exited. As for why the ancient God can come back, he has a vague idea in his mind. Is it because of me? The first existence to step into eternity with the 5 paths of the void? They can only come back with me as the coordinate, or the role of that miracle coin is for today. They have calculated it to the present countless years ago. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. The power of the ancient God in time is incredible. He couldn't help but look around. All the people who came here didn't know that just now, their hearts had been completely exposed. And the ancient God's cold eyes seemed to reveal a trace of mocking smile. A shadow shrouded the president's heart. Silently, all the strong men who came to the ancient God's palace were calculated by the ancient God. They didn't even know that their lives were no longer in their own control. A cold thought came to everyone's mind. Now everyone is here. I am the ancient God, one of the great beings who created the void. I summoned you here to tell you that from now on, the void will return to the arms of the ancient God. Everything you have must exist for the ancient God, and violators will be wiped out from the void. The cold thought did not contain any emotion. This was a notice, and they didn't need to agree at all. Hearing the words of the ancient God, all the strong men were slightly stunned, and then one of them snorted coldly. Are you kidding? Who do you think you are? Ancient God, so what? This is not your era. A strong man with a dark aura said disdainfully. This strong man looked like a demon god, and he looked like an ordinary person. But his body was covered with black scales, and a faint black illusory flame enveloped him. 3 black horns grew on his head, and his boundless majesty showed his great power.